Hey, you, welcome to a brand new episode of the Actionables podcast. In case we haven't met, my name is Peyton. If you are a returning listener or a viewer, thank you so much for tuning back in. My guest for today is somebody who is super special to me because she's the first of a kind on the show. She's an astrologer, an emotional healing and self expression mentor. Her work revolves around helping individuals decode their emotional patterns and relationship challenges using the ancient wisdom of Vedic astrology. I'm super thrilled and kicked to get into this conversation with the incredible and inspiring Subhali Chatterjee. Join me as we deep dive into all things astrology. I'm sure you're going to enjoy this conversation. Let's get into it. Hi, Subhali.
Hey, Peyton, how are you?
Thank you for joining me on Actionables. It's so good to be here and it's so good to sit down and have this conversation. I'm excited. There are a lot of things that I want to jump into. Before we get cracking, the first thing I want to mention is your content game super strong. I want to say this to everybody who's watching this or listening to this on any podcast platform that I first came across you on Instagram and your reels were so addictive and I'm trying to get
Oh,
out of the habit of scrolling and you do not make it easier because your reels because I'm somebody who dabbles in astrology myself and we're going to get into all of that fantastic stuff. So I
yeah.
want to ask you what inspired you to start making content. Talk to me about that first.
I actually started making content related to, mental health, self-love, because I went through a very rough phase of my life and I, really tried to identify what really helped me get through this. And it was, like every little girl's fantasy when it gets broken, you think that someone is a prince charming, then they are the villains of your story, and then you go to therapy and realize a lot of stuff. So that same thing happened with me. And I actually started creating content on mental health. And eventually down the line, I realized astrology is a very useful tool to decode a few psychological patterns. Country that we live in, there are more people who will say that astrology actually makes sense more than the modern sciences that we have, therapy, psychology, right? And it's actually a little bit sad, but when I went deeper into astrology, right, I sort of realized it's very closely linked to psychology. So that sort of inspired me to get started on this journey. I want to help people heal either way. So through astrology, through psychology, healing is the goal. So yeah, that's how I got into this.
That's interesting. There are a lot of moments that happen in everybody's life, that key defining
Yeah.
moment where they realize this
Mm.
is what I was born to do. What was your key defining moment where you realized that, okay, I can use astrology, like you said, to heal people? So, talk to me
Yeah.
about what was that key defining moment for you?
I remember I knew a lot of self love. I practiced a lot of it, and I was sure that I could teach it to people as well. There was this young kid. He was very suicidal, and he was like dealing with a lot of self esteem issues. A lot of, if we are talking about suicide, a lot of self worth, self image things come in, right? He was not, according to him, he was not, conventionally handsome. So when that little spark of hope, when it came to me, it was that moment when this guy one day called me out of the blue and he's like, Didi, do you know? I went out there, I bought this dress, I just went out by myself. And he used to have anxiety related to going out, eating alone at a restaurant. When that moment came to me, I was like, oh my God, this is actually working. So that was the moment for me when I realized I should be doing more of this. And now, since astrology is another tool that is ultimately helping me heal others, it's fantastic. So when you talk to people in terms of planets, in terms of remedies, I believe the Vedas, that was actually a science. It got laid down into this a little bit more of these spiritual factors, because people like believing what their logic allows them to believe. So if you logically tell them over there, that yeah, this thing will happen if you do A B C D E F, and you give them a logical plan, that is so much easier for them to grasp. And in India especially, where people have so much of faith in any deity over any science, a lot of people would rather prefer like just doing some random astrological remedies, wearing some gemstones, and they're like, yeah, this is it. But the way I actually work with my clients is like, oh, you need to do these regular actions as well. So in a way that they don't realize it, but I'm seeing it in action. It's a step towards their better mental health. So that's like, that's pretty much the inspiration.
Fascinating to know that right off the cuff, Shubhali. Okay, so we're going to talk and we're going to break this down into. I want to first start off with you mentioned that India as a
Yeah,
country, we have a lot of faith. And that could be
yeah,
because we have such great culture and rich
yeah,
culture heritage. So talk to me about the Vedic sciences, particularly astrology. And is there
yeah.
some key story from astrology that is, close to your heart that you believe could offer inspiration or hope to somebody who is struggling with their mental health?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this story, and this is not really related to the Vedas or anything like that. I'll get into that part a little bit. But there's a little story I love. I used to have blind faith in astrology at one point, okay, and my parents are very logical people. So one day, my dad saw me getting too worked up about astrology and everything. He's like, just sit over here. Let me tell you a story. So there was a king, and he was, about to fight this very serious war against an enemy kingdom, right? So he consults a Rishi Muni, tell me what's going to happen. So the sage takes out his birth chart of his kingdom and everything. He's like, your victory is guaranteed. You will win, okay? And the king is very happy. He goes out there. He declares in his kingdom, we have won. This great learned
Okay.
sage has said that we have won. And now celebrations are going on. The next day, the war is supposed to happen. But they are celebrating over here, right? So guess what happened? The enemies came in, okay? King got slain. The entire, country perished. The king's child went to this sage, okay, and he's like, what happened? You told my dad, like, we were supposed to win. Now I am exiled. People have been killed. What's going on? He's like, where was your army? The sage asked him, where was your army? Your soldiers were celebrating, feasting, drinking. Where was your army? So this is the story that I would like to share with everyone who's suffering from any kind of mental health issues. The biggest thing to overcome is dysfunction. A lot of people don't realize that. If you
Right.
overcome that dysfunction, like through astrological remedies, through, even pushing yourself, through getting a good support system who can help you get out of there, it's like you will not even realize the value of it. So if I'm to speak in terms of astrology, this would be Mars action versus inaction comes with dysfunction. And people don't realize how serious it is. People will say, oh, they are just procrastinating, this is just laziness, but dysfunction is a very real issue. So that is there, right? And I'm a very strong believer of karma. So there's this theory, there are four types of karma. One is a sanchita karma that you carry from a lot of previous lifetimes. Next comes your prarabdha karma, right? Also, all of that sanchita karma that you have accumulated, from all the previous lifetimes and activities, that you choose to play a certain part of it out in your current lifetime. So that is prarabdha,
Okay.
right? So within
Right.
that also there are things that you can control, there are things that you can't control, right? So when we call destiny, right, there are two sides of it. One is alterable, one is something that you can't alter, right? So the alterable part is your adrida karma, and this all comes under your current life karma, right? So like for example, if I've inherited a certain body type, right? Like if I'm born with certain genetics, right? I'm born with that. So that is prarabdha. That is a result of my past actions, right? And my genetics. So I am sitting at home, right? I am nicely munching on, junk food and everything. I love eating ice cream personally. So I'm munching on ice cream. I decide to, laze my days out, watch some nice anime or something like that. Just my days go by. And like as a result of it, if my metabolism is not that great, I will keep gaining weight, right? On the other hand, say if I choose to improve my diet, I choose to go to the gym, okay? So that is something that I can control. I'll have a better physique in that sense, right? So even though I have been born with certain things, this can be altered. So this is your adrida karma. And then comes the drida karma, like certain things that you can't change. Like a lot of people have very traumatic childhood, right? For
Right.
no reason, a lot of people get abused. For absolutely no reason, because what could a child possibly do? Very honestly, right? It's a child, right? What crimes could they have committed to, like, deserve that kind of an abuse? So that comes under your drida karma. So that can't be changed. So that is there. The third type of karma is your kriyamana karma, like what you're doing in the very present moment, like this interaction, this podcast, like this is
Yeah.
our kriyamana karma. And then comes the agami karma. So if we plan, Payden, tomorrow we are going to go to the gym, that planning itself, that is your agami karma. These things are there, and a lot of people think that astrology is set in stone, but if you take a look at the book, right, remedies are prescribed for a reason. your free will as a person, you are asked to sync with the energies of the planet for a reason. We are not just puppets in the hands of destiny. I think for a lot of people who get anxiety related to astrology, when some astrologer comes in and they go like, oh, this is there in your birth chart, this dosha is there, this is what will happen, Rahu and Saturn, they scare. Majority of the people are scared. They're all here to teach you something. That's just what I want to tell our listeners, that everything is there. A free will also exists. You are a human being, you're not just a puppet. And I think should be a very empowering point for everyone listening to this.
I think it's very interesting that you mentioned this point about free will, because going back to
Yeah.
following up on the story that you shared, I think
Yeah.
a lot of people, even me, when I was, in my younger days, I used to think that, okay, my destiny is set in stone. This has been written. And what that does is it could make people feel like they're the victims, that they have absolutely no control on what's going wrong in their life. Okay, let's get into the remedies part of it. Like, how does free will tie into doing remedies? Because I have heard people saying, okay, start drinking water in a silver cup and your moon is going to get strong, or something like that. And people would blindly follow that, and then they would be disappointed that they're not getting the results. So talk to me about how blindly following remedies coupled with ignoring your free will, how does that add up in all the grand scheme of things in astrology?
It won't really add up. Let's take the example of a simple chemical reaction. So if we are talking in terms of chemistry, there are two things that are reacting with each other, okay? Compounds, elements that are reacting with each. Now sometimes,
Right.
to speed up the process, we add a catalyst to receive a certain end product. That
Right.
catalyst is your remedy, right? Over here, if you are, say, working with certain prarabs, that destiny factor, like you are put
Right.
in a certain situation in life that, say, you are not okay with, in these situations remedies will be just a catalyst. Ultimately, you are the one who has to react with your current life circumstances. You are the one who is interacting with the universe. If you just randomly depend on a catalyst and your own actions are not there, that is no chemical reaction at all. So what will
Right.
your remedies do just reacting with one compound? Where is your partake in it? I believe, how remedies should be designed, how remedies actually were designed, though. They were focusing on a person's actions, how it was originally designed. A lot of, it's very sad to see a lot of rituals have come up that have absolutely no base. Okay, no base in Vedic astrology, in proper astrology, it's not there. A lot of pujas, random pujas and rituals you might have heard. Gemstones are recommended to people for the sense of, either it gives them a, certain status, or either it gives them a certain sense that, yeah, I have won something. Now a lot of planets will shift for me. It does not happen. Like you said, let's talk about the moon. When we are talking about emotions and mental health, moon is a key factor. When you are drinking from a silver cup, right? So yes, it is supportive, right? The element of silver is supportive, right? The element
Right.
of water in itself is supportive in this. But if you are not balancing, if you're not regulating your emotions, if you're not sitting with your emotions, right? What on earth is going to happen by drinking water? You might visit the washroom a few times a day more. Okay.
Right.
So that's it.
Absolutely.
That is it.
Right.
Yeah. So remedies come in when your karma also is there supporting it, right? What actions are you taking? If I am not aware of my emotions, if I'm still stuck in my defense mechanism somewhere, it is not going to work out for me. So that is pretty much how I see the remedial part of things. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Shpali, can you give an example of, like you just mentioned, that there are some ridiculous things that have come into our tradition, right? Like people just
Yeah.
say, okay, donate. I heard somebody say this. I think it was one of my guests on podcast said that some panditji said, give a horse and your problems will be solved, right? At the time of marriage, or some dosh
Yeah.
will be reduced. So, how
Yeah.
can you talk about how ridiculous some of the things that have come up and, like you said, have absolutely no basis in Vedic astrology? So can you give an example?
I'll talk about the gemstones a little bit, because I think
Yes.
this is where people are getting fooled the most. Gemstones and random rituals and pujas mostly. See,
Right.
donating a horse might have made sense in a previous lifetime, like maybe in a more ancient society, right? But even then it would not have made sense if things were not balanced out properly. For example, this horse related ritual I'm very much aware of. it does not make sense, standing in 2025 that you'll randomly donate a horse. Like, what on earth is that? And
Right.
there is a certain term. Okay, I'll touch base a little bit on it. Kalsar.
Okay.
I have read a lot of classic texts, Hindu texts. I have not found it anywhere. It's not there. So it is like, a lot of people think it is a lot of modern astrologers' way of just, making a lot of money. It's not that, when Kalsap dosh actually occurs when, all the planets are placed between the Rahu Ketu axis. So Rahu Ketu always comes in an axis. So if all the planets are there on one side of it, that's like, your Kalsap dosha is there. Now, in reality, okay, it does cause a certain impact, but it's not like, what people define it. So when people get scared, of any rituals or anything like that, my first question to them is like, do you not see other people suffer from this as well, who don't have this? Like, for example, a lot of people say Mars related issues in your marriage, right? It can cause a lot of conflicts, a lot of confusion. I'm like, find me one relationship where the couple has not fought. Just find it for me.
Right.
It's not that you can't harmonize this. Then they say that if the moon is afflicted, right, it can
Right.
cause some kind of imbalance in your in manifestations. Okay, I am like, if your moon is imbalanced, as in your emotions are out of balance, and you won't even know, first of all, what you want, right? So how is it going to work out in that sense? You do your moon's rituals, drink a lot of water from that chandika, glass, you drink your
Right.
water. It's
Right.
not going to work out like that. There are tons of these things, Peyton. I can go on and on about this.
So this aspect of fear mongering you just mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of
Yeah.
astrologers do that. And
Hmm.
obviously it is not a good thing to be done. So
Yeah.
why, in
Yeah.
your opinion, does that happen? Why this constant need to scare people off? And like you
Hmm.
said about
Hmm.
Rahu Ketu, and the moment people don't know much about the shadowy planets, and why do you think some astrologers do that?
Well, the biggest motivation is money these days, needless to say,
Right.
right? But I also say I won't always blame the astrologers, to be honest. I have also seen a lot of people, I have experienced this myself. You tell them proper things, they will still come to you asking for a gemstone. So it is my POV in every single session that, I won't let this person walk away with fear. I will speak the truth, but I will also ensure that it empowers them in a certain way.
Okay.
This woman who wasn't able to give up on a relationship because she was so emotionally invested over there, and the partner simply moved on. There was some misunderstanding, and then it has been 2 years. The woman still wants him back. It didn't work out. She has tried a lot. Now I am seeing that detachment is the only answer to this, right? But she doesn't want to hear that. So she has come back twice, thrice. She has booked sessions looking for refuge. So when these kind of people come in, you can try your level best. You can share a therapist number with them. I have seen a lot of people, when point comes in their lives, when they feel like, my actions are useless right now, and it's
Right.
a very sad situation to be in, honestly. Like, they feel like, I can't do anything now, I must leave everything to God. The gods will do some magic. But just imagine how funny this situation might be for them. Like Shanidev
Right.
is sitting there and he's just watching. You are not taking any action, but you're reading the Hanuman Chalisa or listening to it every single day once. Okay, you really
Right.
think he's going to take away that things that are happening to you as a result of your own karma? First of all, let's
Right.
start there. Okay, but no one
There.
is ready for that conversation when they are that deep down. So one thing I have recommended to a lot of the people who have come to me, number one is work on your emotions. And when it comes to couples, I have told them work on your communication. This is so important from a psychological POV also. At least 80% of the issues in any relationship can be sorted out through proper communication. And in order to do that, you'll also have to regulate your emotions, because if you don't know what you're talking about but you're still talking, like, that is baseless communication, that is useless communication. So that effective part of the communication, it is so important. Even
So
how you talk to yourself, that is also pretty important. Like, how you express things to yourself about yourself. Like, you could give them remedies, but these are the tougher paths to take, parent. Random remedies that come out of nowhere, a few people might have seen it work out for others. It's not necessary that those will work out for them as well. So I think, like, people should be more aware that their actions matter a lot, irrespective of what any astrologer has to say, that yes, this will happen, this is determined for the rest of your life. At least remedies can change your experience of it. So That is, I think, like how we should see this.
Okay, so do you think, Shubali, in that case where you gave this example of your client who was coming back constantly because
Yeah,
she was hoping
yeah,
for a different answer, where the
yeah,
answer was very straightforward that she had to get over the
yeah,
relationship? But
yeah,
some people, do you think they play the victim knowingly and then they can blame astrology if things are not working out? I have heard, for example, your dasha is going on, right? Like your Shani
yeah,
dasha is
yeah.
going on, or your Rahu dasha is going on, and if you had to think about it, do you think people do
Mm,
that because they can shun responsibility and then they say, oh, it's just like in the dashas, I can't do anything
yeah.
about it, why my life is such a mess? Because it is
More
easier to
than, yeah.
blame and play the victim, right?
It's very easy. It's very easy. The simplest thing in life to do is to blame someone else. But to
Correct.
take that accountability, Maryada Purushottam, to take that responsibility, to take that accountability, it's so tough for people because we have grown up in that society. Our generation of people, millennials, Gen Zs, we have grown up with a set of people who have shown us, that the blame game is the easiest thing to do, right? Because they didn't know therapy, they didn't know mental health. Our parents' generation really did not understand these things. So they would either take their frustrations out on their kids. The ones who have not experienced this, I mean, like, they wouldn't even understand what I'm talking about right now. But the ones who have, like, they have seen their parents, blame each other, blame the child for any random thing, something that they're not even have done, they are not even associated with. So these things happen. So even astrology is an outlet for that. Even when Saturn's transits come in, this Sade Sati thing, that is probably
Yeah.
the scariest thing that is going on in the market right now, right? It is just a transit, right? And people are scared of this for just one reason, Payton. Saturn is a lot of karma, and in this day and age where even we ourselves, we make so many mistakes that are ethically, morally wrong. We don't even realize it that we are doing it, but it's still our own karma
Right.
that we are doing at the end of the day, right? So for example, if there is an ice cream in the refrigerator, right, and if my sibling comes and says ki didi, is there any ice cream, and I want to have it, so I'll be like, no, it's not there, but I have
Right.
lied. No, that is a consequence that I will
Right.
have to face later. So these little things, we don't realize it consciously, but our subconscious is picking up on it at the end of the day. Your subconscious knows. It's still picking up cues here and there. So that is why I think these few transits, few planets are so scary, especially Saturn, because it is the lord of karma. So whatever you sow, you will reap it. And that is why, I think a lot of people give up during Saturn's transits. I have seen a lot of people like, oh, Sade Sati is going on, Shani Dasha is
Right.
going on, I am trying, nothing is
Right.
happening. But have you really tried? The ones who
Right.
try and then they don't get any results, that is a situation where a remedy would be helpful, where a mentor would be helpful. Those things you can try out. Right? But if you have not even tried, if you have just, put your hands up and you have accepted that, yes, I'm a puppet, what is going to happen over there? I mean, honestly.
It's interesting you mentioned, okay, so I have to talk about this. It's
Hmm.
interesting that you just mentioned about Saturn, right? And
Yeah.
I have Saturn in my Lagna. So I can vouch and I can attest that last couple of years when I first started my coaching business, I struggled. I struggled for 3 years straight. And those 3 4 years, initial 3 4 years, were hell. And anybody who saw
Hmm.
me would be like, okay, so you're struggling so much, why don't you just give up? So, and I remember, and I'm not saying this to boast, or it's not a sentence of arrogance at all, but those 3 4 years I realized, and I wasn't deep into astrology back then. Okay, I was like, I'm just having like a bad series of luck, because everything I touched was bad, it was rotten. Okay, so nothing was working out, I was not getting clients,
Yeah.
I was not making money, and I had given up a very cushy 10 years of advertising career to start my business. Okay,
Okay.
that was my first business,
Hmm.
and I did that
Hmm.
for 3 years. And yeah, and after all that, then my mother, at that time, when she was there, she said, you should wear yellow sapphire. Okay, we are going back to, we were talking about gemstones for a
Yeah.
bit, and
Yeah.
I can talk about my personal experience with it. Okay, I'm somebody, I like to believe that I'm pretty logical, and for me it
Hmm.
is about 50% probability of, for example, when we die, none of this
Yeah.
matters. Okay, in
Yeah.
my head
Yeah.
it goes like this,
Yeah.
but there's a 50% probability that I'm going to pay for all that I have done. Okay, so in my
Yeah.
head, that's how I make sense of it. And how
Hmm.
I got into astrology, and I got into, interested in the planets, and then I got interested in your reel and your information that you put out. So coming to
Yeah.
gemstones, I can
Yeah.
attest that I don't know if it works for everybody, but from the time I've started wearing yellow sapphire, for me personally,
Yeah.
I have seen
Yeah.
a huge difference, Shivali. And to
Yes.
the fact that I can't explain it. Because if I
Hmm.
try to explain it, somebody says, "Oh, you're one of those, you're the gemstone people." But I'm like, okay, first, it looks nice on me. Okay. And plus, it is
Yeah.
working for me. So I
Yeah.
will take it. Because
Hmm.
again, about the Shani being in Lagna, I have also
Yeah.
realized that the moment I act out of character, and I think we all
Hmm.
have at some point in our life, when we have
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
been patient enough, we have not been kind enough, compassionate enough, it has come back and bitten me. And how?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it has given me instant karma. Like, we were talking about karma, and it has given me instant karma. So, okay, so
Yeah.
talk to me about, recently you put out this information, and I was completely blown away by the intensity and integrity of your content, Shivali. You said how to think about life with
Hmm.
respect to the planets, right? So
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
this motivation or energy, and I'm
Yeah.
paraphrasing here, could be
Yeah.
attributed to the Mars energy. So,
Correct.
could you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about how these planets play out for somebody who's like, still dabbling into astrology, or is
Hmm.
thinking about using astrology as a tool for mental health?
Yeah. So let's talk about mental health a little over here. Then I'll move over to the other planets. These are all actually interlinked. I think in Vedic astrology, this is way more prioritized than any other planet. It's your moon. You ask someone, what's your Rashi? They will tell you your moon sign. So that is how it works. That is how much priority it is given. Lagna is obviously, that is also important, but your moon sign, right? So your moon, basically. Moon is the planet that is inherently supposed to be very benefic. It is also the planet that can turn malefic just like that. So that is a problem over here that we have. So when anything happens in your life, right, your moon is regulating it. Like there is this sentence, I love this, and it is this that until death, all other defeat is psychological. So, and I have in my life as well. And I was blown away when I heard this. Moon, such an important planet, and it's so less talked about in the market. You will hear tons of remedies about Shani, Mangal, Rahu, Ketu. It's still there, right? Your own mind. So anything goes wrong in your life, anything goes right in your life, the first planet to get affected is always your moon. How you feel about it. To anyone going through any tough time, right, before jumping into any random remedies, try regulating your emotions first. Okay, anyone trying to do it through spirituality, if it is working for you, great, right? Because a lot of times I've seen people use spirituality as it is attributed to moon, it is also attributed to Ketu a little bit. They find this, to be very escapism sort of a situation for them. Like they would like to escape through spirituality. So if you're doing that, understand your moon is not getting regulated. You're still ignoring those emotions, you're not processing it.
This is fascinating, Shivali. We covered quite a lot of ground in terms of planets. Okay, so I want to take us back a little bit, and I want to touch upon how somebody could use astrology, all of what we have been speaking about, as a tool for emotional healing.
I would say do a lot of emotional regulation. Okay, practice it, learn it, go to a therapist, talk to someone whose help you might need. Okay, so moon is the first thing that would come in, right? Second thing that would happen are dysfunction, right? That would be your Mars. Okay, when you lose that willpower to do something, your decisiveness, your action, that is your Mars. So in that reel, I remember which one you're talking about. So I had touched on Mars, Saturn, and Rahu. So when your Mars
Right.
goes down, your willpower to act, it's gone. So when it is gone, I always recommend this little exercise. Utilize the other planets. Okay, there is a reason that willpower is gone. Either you have not dreamed enough about it, or you have not dreamed passionately enough about it. Understand which one is it. So if you have not dreamed enough about it, it will be vision that you have in your head. You have not laid down the plan, you have not thought about it. Okay, dream that crazy dream. Just close your eyes and just see, like, yes, I'm on top of the Eiffel Tower, maybe, like I'm skydiving from there, I'm scuba diving in Maldives, I've made this much amount of money, something, whatever it is, right? Get that dream, get so obsessed with it. even if it seems impossible, because that can be taken care of later. But if it
Right.
seems impossible right now, right, no one cares. It's your dream, right? You will make it possible. You're still living, you're still breathing. Like, give yourself that grace that, okay, it's a bad phase, I will get over it. But I need to get that dream, get that obsession with that dream that, yes, ye karenge ab, like there is no stopping me beyond this. So
Right.
I think, if that part is figured out, parent, right, that this is a dream I'm getting obsessed with, your Saturn and Mercury have to come into play. Because if you give into too much of Rahu, what Rahu is great at is illusions. Right? I'll give you a very good example. Rahu is the best businessman out there, according to me. Like, a lot of people
Right.
consider Mercury also, but I would say Rahu. Very honestly, that crazy stuff, that unconventional stuff, Rahu is the one. But Rahu also keeps you in
Right.
this loop. Like, say if you are planning to start a bakery, right? Like how all the girly pops are functioning these days. I'll have a
Right.
bakery, I'll also
Right.
have a flower shop, I'll also have a library over there. That is a dream.
Yeah.
So this is what Rahu is doing. Then you think, oh, okay, so I'll get flowers. So flowers will be more wildlife themed, or flowers will be more white aesthetic themed. Getting into that loop, parent, where you think and you think and you think, but you're not acting on it, that is a problem, right? So what do, you understand that, you note that down, and then you start working with the energies of Saturn and Mercury. You give it a little bit of a structure, that okay,
Right.
say let me just start off with my bakery. When I hit my first 10 lakhs or something, I'll think of expanding it into a floral shop. Then when I hit my
Right.
next milestone, I'll make it into a library as well. Saturn and Mercury's logics function: structure, discipline, focused effort, consistency. Otherwise, your
Right.
dream is just a dream, right? It's like, if you're spending a lot of time, energy, money on it, it's an expensive hobby. So it's not your dream that you are working towards, something that should be realized. And then comes
Right.
Mars. Mars is how you act. So if you have that inspiration, if you have that plan, right, then you start acting on it. Just execute. And
Right.
since you have Saturn in your Lagna, you would know there have been times in your life where you have just told yourself, just do it. Do it sick, just do it. Don't be too hard on yourself in the process, but like, do it. Get yourself
Right.
to just take some kind of action. So I have also been
Right.
through this. There have been days where I didn't feel like creating content. I was down. I was actually dealing with anxiety towards the beginning of this year, and I really didn't feel like doing anything. But somehow that astrological aspect came into my mind, man. Like, consistency, routine, let's do it. So that's how things have been going pretty well, so by God's grace. I mean, if you open your birth chart right now, Peyton, right, every planet
Right.
that we call exalted, it's a sort of a good placement. It can also act as a negative impact, like, because astrology is so nuanced. People, on a surface level, what looks good can also give you a bad result, that people don't even realize. Like, for example, I'll tell you, someone's moon is very exalted. It is supposed to manifest as blessings, right? But it also makes you a very emotional person. That is a strength. But when you let it outshine all your other planets sitting over there, that is a problem over there. So this is the issues that we don't really realize, and we jump into astrology thinking that oh, this is this particular planet is afflicted, this dasha is going on, I'll just do these remedies. So more than
Right.
jumping into astrology directly, because you will get your answers over there, I would suggest, sit with yourself first, right? Reflect on whatever is going on, understand what could be causing it. Then astrology's information is there everywhere these days, Peyton. It's out there on
Right.
YouTube, it's out there on so many courses that so many people are teaching. I would
Right.
suggest pick up a very basic book, and over here I would like to name this book. Either you go for Light on Life or Astrology of the Seers. Okay, uh, both of these are
Okay.
available on Amazon. Beautiful, beautiful books. My students who have recently joined my basic astrology course, they have read this book. It is awesome. It is so good for a newbie person, right? It is such a basic, beautiful, light read. Just go for it. Astrology of the Seers. Beautiful, light-hearted read for you. Okay, it will help you understand a few things, and foundational knowledge of astrology, unless and until you want to dive in deep. That's a story for a
Right.
different day. Advanced basics of astrology you can get from that book. I would
Right.
suggest you go into that first. But before even going into that, figure out what it is that is causing this. Related to that, if you then read the astrology, the books that I just recommended, you will understand that this is where the issues are happening, and you can join your dots. So I think that would work well.
After reading a lot of charts and your
Hmm.
interaction with clients, would you say there are certain placements that are
Hmm.
really good or that excite you? Are there certain placements like that when you look at some chart and you get excited, like, oh, moon is
Hmm.
here or sun is here? Are there anything like which stand out?
I'll tell you, sun in the 10th house really excites me a lot. It's a very
Okay.
beautiful placement to have, especially if that sun is in a very beautifully placed sign. If that sun has strength, if that sun has dignity in the 10th house, oh my god. You can tell, that 10th house is your house of actually your public image, your recognition, right? And sun is the, fame, confidence, that kind of a, like you can't call it a planet, but it's still called a planet. So sun is that.
Right.
So that
Right.
syncs so beautifully. Another placement that makes me very happy is moon in the 5th house. Your inner child is so happy. Okay, it's not like you won't go through your own set of struggles, but there are these people, um you see, they are so full of life. Irrespective of
Right.
what happens with them, they are full of this sunshine energy. Their inner child is so happy. You can see their inner child at play. And I
Right.
love those kind of people. They're just like little beams of sunshine. Moon in the
Right.
5th house does that, especially like, and I'm talking from a very generalized POV. Like
Yes.
afflictions and all
Right.
of that is still there. Charts are very intricate, but if I see that, and if it is unafflicted, if it is just by itself, just doing its own thing, oh my god, very pretty. Another thing that I like is your moon Venus conjunction. The women and the men that conjunction creates, Payden, you could write a freaking poem on them. I'm not kidding
Really?
you. Beauty, yes, they are blessed with beauty. If not by beauty, according to the societal so-called standards, if they don't
Right.
consider themselves to be that beautiful, they are so creative. Okay, they are so, like, their hearts are so beautiful. Let's just start there. Their hearts are so beautiful. Okay,
It's
even
beautiful.
Jupiterian
Right.
placements, strong Jupiterian placements, you will see the kindest people. Okay, they have these kind of placements going on. You will love to interact with them. They will, like, if you have a friend who has a strong Jupiterian placement, they are always going to be there for you. I love that. And
Right.
needless to say, Neech Bhang Rajyog, that's an underdog story. We all love an underdog story. So yeah, these are a few
Right.
placements. I love it. I love it.
Okay. So conversely, are
Yeah.
there some placements that you look at somebody's birth chart and you go like, okay, I have to break this
Mm.
gently to this person and I
Yeah.
don't want to
Yeah.
fear monger that we spoke about earlier. So are there certain placements like that? Or is there some practice of yours, personal practice that you say, okay, I'm seeing this, but I don't want to say it so abruptly or I don't want to say it in a way that scares
Mm.
somebody?
So, see, Peyton, I'll tell you, there are few things that can be fixed, right? And there are few things that can't be really fixed. Like, for example, if Ketu comes in the second house, if Ketu comes in the fourth house as well, right? There is this theme of separation from parents. Now, if you're telling this to a child, right, that around this
Right.
age, or around this specific time period, if there are no other afflictions or aspects happening, you might move out. There might be a physical distance, or you might be detached from your home space. Now, if you're telling this to a mother, it is very tough for her to hear. Fathers might still logic it out, like, it makes sense. The kid will go out to study,
Right.
the kid will, do their own job, move to a different city, live in a different house. But the moms find it very
Right.
hard to accept this, But I've also seen moms who are very encouraging about this kind of a situation. But I mean, like, overall, it's not something that you really want, especially in an earlier age, like if I am looking at the
Right.
chart of, and say, some kind of emotional distance has already been created. It is, and say it's a case of absent parenting, it's really hard to take a look at that. And one thing
Right.
that I've seen, I feel so sad for these people. That is a moon Saturn conjunction. I mean, I could cry about it right now. Okay, people with
Right.
this conjunction, like, बोलते हैं ना, खुद ही अपने सबसे बुरे दुश्मन. They have this, you will understand this, Payden, because you have Saturn in your Lagna, right? It gives you certain
Right.
labels of your identity. That Payden, you are this. Payden, you are that. Sometimes these are
Right.
very good. These, help you set up boundaries, not say yes to situations that, don't serve you well, you know.
Right.
But what it also does is it limits you. For example, I had this client of mine with this exact same placement. He, because he was an introvert, okay, he told
Right.
himself that I'm not a communicator at all. Guess his field of work? Journalism. You know,
Irony.
yeah, the irony. So this is what, I don't really like this conjunction. This Moon Saturn conjunction. Like it's called a wish yoga, right? The biggest wish I think that happens over here, VISH wish, that poison. So I think the
Yeah.
biggest wish that happens over here is you stopping yourself from reaching your own potential. That's actually sad. They
Right.
also go through a lot of emotional issues, starting from a very
Right.
early age. It's very testing for them. I believe there are very few things in your birth chart that cannot be remedied. Like, certain things that you have been born with, certain things in your life that you absolutely cannot control. Right? Quite a few other things, they are playing out in your life and they are in your control. Majority of the things I
Right.
would believe, like this is a very bold claim to make, but I believe, there are quite a few things that you can control in your birth chart. So I would say rely on that. At least your experience of the thing that is already set in stone, that might not be that pleasant. It might change. Your reaction to that might change. I think pretty cool, I think. Yeah.
As an astrologer, what would you say, Shubhali, would be your advice to somebody, dating in this day and age today, where
Hmm.
everybody, is attracted only outwardly? And of course,
Hmm.
everybody has made that mistake where they find something which is not good for them inherently attractive,
Yeah.
right? So would you
Yeah.
say, as an astrologer, sometimes do you feel like saying, kundli mila lo pehle, like, just look at your day, you look at your birth charts before you go out on that date?
Yeah.
Do you feel tempted to say that, like, maybe because, not because, just because of the
Hmm.
placement, but placements would give you
Hmm.
an idea as to, okay, this might not be the perfect pairing for you? Do you
Yeah.
sometimes have
Yeah.
that?
I have, I cannot tell you patent. I mean, it's useless to be honest, because people are
Right.
so romantically invested. For someone to
Right.
spend money on a consultation and then go to an astrologer, right? It means they are already there. You can't help it.
Right.
They are already
Right.
there, especially in the initial stages. Parent, trust me, I can
Right.
write this down for you. You tell
Right.
them this will end in a divorce. You tell them that
Right.
this is exactly what will happen with you. I mean, I don't prefer doing exactly that, until and unless there is some
Right.
remedy. Sometimes, you can predict how a person is going to act. If they act out of their current character, that's a
Yeah.
different story. But if they
Right.
don't, right, that is how you predict things, right? Their current set of karmas remain the same. That, right? So my point is, if you do this and if you tell them, they are either going to get offended, they are going to say astrology does not work, or they will be very nice to you, they will accept what you have said, but they will go to some other astrologer that they think are better than you. So if someone
Right.
is dating, okay, I would just suggest a few things. Number one, ensure that your partner is at least emotionally intelligent. These are standards that I have kept for myself as well.
Of
Because
course.
see, when you are dealing with your own set of problems, and honestly speaking, Gen Zs, millennials, the Gen Alphas who are coming up, we have a good amount of mental health issues to deal with by our own selves. Everyone is suffering
Right.
from something or the other, right? So, work on it. There's nothing to be like, like to be stuck in this victimhood. Like I understand a lot of people I've seen, they will try to make excuses for their partners, like, oh, their childhood was tough. I'm like, so was yours. But are you like that? Are you
Right.
behaving rudely with them? Are you, looking at other people just because you have this particular trauma? I have seen people, justify their partners like anything. But is it
Right.
serving them? This is my question, right? Understand one thing. Whenever you're looking for a partner, and more than an astrological advice, Peyton, I would just, like, this is just a general advice that I would give them. First of all,
Right.
look at their emotional intelligence. Is it matching your capacity, right? How well are they regulating their emotions? How are they reacting when they are pissed off, right? Especially if you're dating
Right.
to marry, right? That is very important. Are they respectful of your boundaries? These basic things, right, which should be the bare minimum of any human interaction, these have been so much, taken out of the society by the previous generations, that we think it's okay to, accept that kind of a behavior. I was there myself. I know how my dating life has been. There's a reason
Right.
I have not been in this scenario for the last 2.5 years or something. It's a jungle out there.
Right.
In my words, it's a jungle out there. So,
It's not
um,
easy.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So my recommendation is, ladies and gentlemen, please understand your partner needs to be at least emotionally intelligent, right? Looks can
Right.
be worked on, okay? You can get those muscles in the gym, you can go to a salon, they can beautify you. All of that is like, buildable, right? Mindset, if they are not already at a level where they are ready to grow, where they are ready to, like, and this goes for men and women both, provide for their
Right.
partners, right? It's not going to work out for you, especially if you're looking for something long term. And for those who are going for shorter term relationships, okay, I would say ensure your emotions are not invested. Otherwise, don't
Right.
go for short term relationships. It's going to end very badly.
Right.
All of these talking stages, situationships. I have seen, Peyton, you won't believe me, people dating other people who are married. Okay. And then they're like, I don't understand. Why is my boyfriend not giving me time? Why is my girlfriend so busy with her husband? I'm like, bro, what are you talking about? That doesn't make sense. They have
Right.
kids, they have someone who they are married to. Right? So they knew what they were
Right.
getting into. Right? Jan Bujke, don't put yourself in the situations where you might regret it at a later point. This is all that I would say. Like Saturn's advice. Saturn is not a planet anyone likes in a dating life scenario, Peyton, to be honest, right? But the boundaries, the
Ask me.
limitations.
Ask me, Shivali. It's like this perceived headmaster or
Hmm.
headmistress
Hmm.
who has
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely no tolerance for juvenile or childish
Absolutely
standards,
not.
right? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
personal experience talks. Yes. Okay,
Yeah.
so I have one final question before I ask you my final question, but one final question
Yeah.
on astrology, Shivali.
Yeah.
Recently
Yeah.
we had this unfortunate incident about the airplane crash.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and after that I have noticed that so many people have started making reels on predictive astrology, that this
Hmm.
is the year of Mangal and this is the year of Mars and people are going to die in bulk. And so could you talk about how intrinsically is astrology predictive, and can it be
Yeah.
predicted to the degree that people are claiming that it can be predicted?
A lot of things that looks like, like it's not within our control, it actually, honestly, it is, right? But very random incidents, right, that are, like this plane crash only. Let's just take this up, okay? People
Yeah.
knew some kind of, vehicle related issues would happen, okay? Transport related
Right.
issues would happen. My point is, no one could predict this particular aircraft would crash, right? If someone would have predicted that, people would not have died. So if you're telling people, right, like don't travel around this time, that is, I'm not saying that is, useless advice, right? I'm also sure that if someone claims that, it is going to be 10,000% accurate, I would request them to, also kindly take out the plane numbers, the, timings of that plane, at least the destinations where they are supposed to go and,
Right.
like, arrive and
Right.
transit from, you know because that could have saved a lot of lives. So there is knowledge, there is predictive astrology also works, events, muhurtas, all of these things work, we know in our horary techniques, right? But if you uh, rely on that blindly, like for example, a relative of mine asked, like, we are going to Vietnam next month, how is it going to be, right? So if someone's birth chart is favorable, right, but you're seeing that, at a global level, right, a lot of things are happening there. A lot of people take out the birth charts of countries based on the, date and time that they were either
Right.
independent on or formed, something like that, and they make these things. It's not
Right.
absolutely inaccurate, but my point is, if you blindly follow these things, right, there is going to be a problem for you, right? So predictive
Right.
astrology also works, but it has to be, in my opinion, it has to go to the extent of being that predictive that it can save people's lives. If your astrology is
Right.
predictive, if you know certain events are going to happen, right, then, someone could have just alerted the airlines and been like, please
Right.
take some safety measures or something, but that extent of prediction is not possible. What I would suggest, right, whenever these kind of predictions come up, right, I would say, if it is possible for you to, center your day or your month or your year around those certain predictions, because some astrologers do exist out there who predict these things beautifully, right? And it's pretty accurate. But what I would suggest to everyone, because I know my parents also have this habit, they will just open the news, and where some astrologer is just saying some random stuff, this year is going to be like this month is going to be like this. If you can center your day, year, or month around that, great, right? If that is absolutely not possible, right, try consulting an astrologer, try understanding how it might impact you, then decide how to go about it, right? Because blind faith is not good, but blind distrust is also not good. So that is what I would say.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautifully said, Shivali. Okay, so
Thanks. Thanks.
I don't want to end our conversation, but I want to be respectful of
Yeah.
the time that you have. And
Yeah.
that brings me to the final question that I like to ask all the creative
Yeah.
people that I have on the show is, what is that one hill that you would love to die on? What is that one thing that you want to keep talking about, which could,
Hmm.
in your opinion, impact the life of others?
Okay. That would be, for people to be expressive, express, be yourself, be done with it. Like, self expression is so underrated these days. I find it,
Right.
this is a problem that I dealt with myself. So I always had this, sunshine kind of a personality. Everyone was like, oh, she's so jolly, she's so happy all the time. But when I was sad, I really didn't share that, and even when I did, it was not the entire story. So self expression matters to me a lot, and I think, it could solve a lot of our problems these days. Relationships, parent child relationships, it could sort it out, right? Take responsibility for your emotions, learn how to express them instead of suppressing them. So that is one hill I would like to die on. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
time, Shivali. I have loved having this conversation. Everything astrology. I wish we had more time because I want to ask you so much
Yeah.
more. And I'm sure my listeners and people who are watching this have enjoyed this
Yeah.
episode. Thank you so
I
much.
have
And thank
enjoyed
you.
this,
Really,
Peyton.
really thank you. Thank
Thank you for
you.
calling me over your parent. It's a huge honor for me, right? I have enjoyed the questions that you have asked, the way you have asked them also, right?
Thank
Lovely
you
over
so
here.
much. And that does it for this beautiful conversation. If you enjoyed it, hit me up and let me know. You can get in touch with Shubhali and myself on the links mentioned in the description box below. Till next week, remember, your goals matter and it's really up to you to make them happen. Take good care of yourself, and I'll talk to you soon.